Hello, and welcome back to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and it's going to be a quick one from me today. First of all, it is 420. If you know, you know. Bitcoin is trending on Twitter, a Bitcoin button, which is a competition run by Binance, in which it seems that you push a button and you're in a chance to win some Bitcoin. I'll be honest, I don't really care about this, but it's cool to see Bitcoin trending anyway. We have the UK set to have the slowest growth of all the G7 nations in 2023, according to the IMF. So, according to the IMF forecast, the UK is going to be the worst performing G7 economy next year. They are saying the cost of living crisis and tax increases projected are going to slow economic activity to a crawl. And this new forecast goes contrary to what the PM was claiming over the last couple of weeks. So that's quite interesting. The IMF predicted that Britain's economy would increase by just 1.2% in 2023, and that our inflation would be higher than every G7 member, and slower to return to our 2% target. So, of course, this goes hand in hand with what this channel has been preaching and predicting since its inception, really. 1.2% growth in 2023 is so far below our inflation numbers that I believe this counts as stagflation. If you just search stagflation into Google, you'll get UK braced for prolonged period of stagflation. This is when the inflation rate is high at the same time that economic growth rates are slowing down. So you get a stagnating economic growth and high inflation. Stagflation. The IMF chief economist says we are seeing that the UK is facing elevated inflation. Again, if you lived here, if you've visited here on holiday, if you've been to any shops or any petrol stations, so on and so forth, you'll fully be aware of this already. And tight monetary policy is weighing down economic activity this year and next, which is also true of pretty much everywhere in the world, isn't it? So in addition to the rising cost of living, inflation basically, our companies are facing an increase of corporate taxes from 19% to 25% as of next April, which will probably make it difficult to put the economy centre stage in an early general election. Never forget the old trick that everyone in politics likes to pull before an election, both here and abroad, and that is to cause a bit of downward pressure on the economy and then pump it back up right in time for the election, so they can point to the economy and say, look what we did, aren't we great? So just something to be aware leading into the general election. You may have seen this. Netflix is trying desperately to regain some subscribers. It had its first subscriber fall. It was a few weeks ago now, I think, a couple of months maybe. And it is now trying to recover and recoup some of these subscribers by hinting that it's going to crack down on password sharing. So I'm not personally a Netflix subscriber or password user, but if you are, it might be something to be aware of. So Netflix suffered a decline of 200,000 people signing up for their streaming service in the first 3 months of the year as it faced stiff competition from rivals, and Netflix warned shareholders that another 2 million subscribers are likely to leave in the 3 months to July. So I wonder what's causing this. Well, I wouldn't like to say, but I did find this on Twitter and I thought this was amusing. Netflix has lost subscribers because the content sucks and is agenda driven. Now, I don't really watch much of it, if any at all really, but the bits I have seen does seem incredibly agenda driven to me. And I think eventually people get sick of that, don't they? Anyway, let me know what you think, if you agree, if you disagree. Let me know if you watch Netflix or don't. So we've got this is not exactly brand new news. It is posted today, but I think I've already covered this on the channel, that there is renewed optimism for a US spot Bitcoin ETF. They have gotten another futures ETF through, but they've gotten this under a different act, a different regulatory act, which allegedly is paving the way for a spot Bitcoin ETF. If you've been in the space for any length of time, you'll know that this has been an awful long time coming, and there's been so many false hopes towards having a Bitcoin ETF that have materialized into no spot ETF that at this point it almost seems kind of silly to get excited about this kind of thing. However, the GBTC conversion from the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust to what is hopefully going to become a spot Bitcoin ETF on July the 6th. So it'll be really interesting to see that. That's actually not too far away now. Be really interesting to see what can come of this, and if we will finally get that spot ETF for Bitcoin. The IMF has also published a global financial stability report that details an awful lot, including the state of the global economy. They did include Bitcoin as a discussion as a means to avoid sanctions and fragmentation of old payments and the banking infrastructure, a global call to action for the regulation and control of assets like Bitcoin to prevent further systemic degradation. The IMF does not like Bitcoin at all. The IMF would much prefer it is able to in-debt other small nations. It's my belief that the IMF are not going to go down without a fight, and Bitcoin will need to emerge victorious from that fight. Bitcoin will emerge victorious because most of the IMF's arguments are just based on nonsense. They say things like they've got energy issues and it's bad for the environment, and that Russia are using it to avoid sanctions. All of these things are sort of not really founded within reality. It doesn't have the liquidity either to avoid sanctions. The whole notion that Bitcoin uses too much energy and is bad for the environment is, simply not founded in reality either, since the majority of the energy for the Bitcoin network comes from renewable places, and energy that would normally be wasted, such as gas runoffs that's normally fled into the atmosphere, that sort of thing, is being, instead of fled into the atmosphere to cause greenhouse gases, is being actually used to mine Bitcoin. So most of their arguments are not founded in reality, and therefore I believe that it's going to be quite easy for Bitcoin to emerge victorious. Couple that with the fact that countries basically have a choice. Do they want to be in the pocket of the IMF and be dominated and controlled and persuaded by them? Or do they want to just hold Bitcoin, adopt Bitcoin as legal tender, and take back their own independence? And so, as Bitcoin appears to be catching some sort of bounce from the 38k level, again, for me, I've said this before, I'll say it again, this is more or less just net sideways until we break above here or below here. Pretty much just range bound neutral. Although, of course, as I've said before, I do stand by my thesis that we are going to grind up into this box. In the midst of all of that, I'll leave you with this from Willy Woo. Willy says the orange coin seems quite undervalued here, and that a mean reversion is soon to play out. So if we take a look at this, you can see the highly liquid supply shock oscillator is right down at the bottom of this range. So this indicator quantifies on-chain supply and demand, and this oscillator shows the relative movement from its standard deviations for the long-term average. And so we are way off of the center line, as you can see. We are way, way, way off of the center line, and therefore some sort of mean reversion you would expect to occur fairly soon. So if you found value here today, I'd appreciate you to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We post daily content. Hello and welcome to the new subs. Appreciate every single one of you. And until tomorrow, I'm your boy Camel. Take care. Bye.